All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar tonight. We're happy to have you. And tonight we are joined by Jevita Rogers, our Executive Director for Financial Aid, Student Employment and Scholarships, and Ralph from our Director of Housing. And so we are excited to talk with you tonight. And we will likely be joined by Chris Beiswinger later, who is the Director's Den. And we're in his house tonight. He's apparently had an internet crash. So some unfortunate timing there, but we're still excited that you're here, and we're still going to be excited to field all of your questions tonight. Jevita, Ralph, would you guys like to just briefly give your own little introduction? Let us know how long you've been with UCCS.
You first.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ralph Giese. I'm Director of Operations for the Housing and Residence Life Office. I have been on campus now, I guess it's 16 and a half years, always in the Residence Life and Housing Office, and have seen our on-campus living double since I arrived on campus, which is really exciting for us. And I'm happy to be here to answer your questions and hopefully give you some good advice about having your students live on campus.
And I'm Jevita Rogers. I have been at UCCS 9 years. I moved here from the East Coast and they are pummeled with snow, and I'm very happy that I'm not. So I oversee the Office of Financial Aid, Student Employment and Scholarships. And so I'm here tonight to give you some tips and go through the any questions that you guys have as you're looking at joining our Mountain Lion Pride family in the fall.
Welcome back to the Den, Chris. We're so glad you made it back. We just did some brief introductions this evening about who you have in your den tonight, but we hadn't given any other updates other than to say that, yes, we've got our favorite Jevita and Ralph here tonight. So if you want to take it away with your updates and getting started, you're ready to go.
Thank you. Sorry, my internet just decided to crash on me, which is the most appropriate thing happening, I think, probably for all of us. My daughter is inside the house doing a Zoom violin recital. So I saw her part. Good to hang out with you all now. So apologies, but the show will go on. Again, my name is Chris Beiswinger, Director of Admissions. And as you've already met Jevita and Ralph, I think if you joined us on the last Director's Den or any of these Director's Dens, you will get a pretty good sense that we probably spend far too much time with one another for being colleagues. And so if we get pretty informal, you'll realize quick that we're pretty friendly. And I would consider these two others on screen very good friends that I'm also very fortunate to work with. Tonight, when December 1st comes every year, that starts the UCCS scholarship application and the housing application opens up. And so we thought, what better for December in this session to have the two people whose offices oversee those processes. We'll talk a little bit about some deadlines and things like that as we go through, and we've got, some to-do items that we'll check off. But we really want to educate you on what these offices really do for your students. For Jevita's office, for financial aid, student employment, and scholarships, it really is more than money. And I'm going to ask her a lot about the different services that her office and her team provides your students and you all. And then for Ralph, I think it's very fair to say, Ralph, that residence life and housing is more than just a bed.
Absolutely.
And the experience that your students will have living on the UCCS campus is really important to us. It's tremendously valuable for a student, but we care about that, and we care about the experience that they're having, good and the bad. We handle it all. And so as we go through all this tonight, I would encourage you to ask some questions through the Q&A. We've got, as you've heard Jacqueline in the background, we've got a handful of people that will be answering questions. We really need to avoid any personal or sensitive information. Whenever I put Jevita on screen, and that's the money person, people want to know how much money can I get? Or you have a very, very, very specific need. Ask us that in the Q&A and we can follow up with you on that at another time. We won't get into like, she'll explain what estimated family contribution is obviously, but we're not going to get into like the transactional nature of financial aid. We really want to talk about the services of financial aid. When we get to Ralph, we start talking about residence life and housing. Obviously, he'll give you an update on all the things going on with his area, but we really want to get to the support and care that he and his team put into making sure your students have a wonderful living experience. So, Jevita, to lead off, what is the funniest or most inappropriate thing you have ever had a student come to you saying, hey, I need a loan for this?
Oh, there are some good ones. Probably my favorite is they needed additional funding to help pay for their comfort animal, and that the comfort animal was not with them. And for those of you who may not have comfort animals, it's emotional support, and there are limits of what kind of animals. And this particular student had a horse, and we don't have a stable on campus, and they had their horse stabled back, I think it was Chicago, but they needed money because the cost of hay was going up. And it was an interesting conversation about just what financial aid funds, what we can use financial aid funds for, and that we are limited in what kind of things we can do. So I think that was one of my tops. I also had a request for somebody who needed an additional reptile because one snake ate the other snake. I've had things like that. So typically interesting pet stories, and kind of leads into Ralph and our residence halls, because it's interesting what happens with pets.
Absolutely.
So that goes into, like we kind of preface, that your office is more than just the office that gives out money. And by the way, guest parents, I would encourage, now's a good time to open up whatever beverage you have, whether it's eggnog, hot cocoa, anything. I just went peanut butter porter. What does the Office of Financial Aid really do for students, for new parents and families, for our current students, and even some graduates I know that you've worked with? What is really the full scope of what your office does for students?
Well, I think to start with, one thing that I always like to remind people is that financial aid is a start to finish office. So we will be with you for the next 4 years. If your student decides to go to graduate school, you're with us for 6 years. So we're going to help you not only learn how to be a good educated about financial options that are available for the student to go to school, but also we have a wonderful financial literacy program that we do in the fall, where we help educate students about things like how to budget, how to do things, and not spend all of their money in one day, how to make good financial decisions. And then also, because of the various pieces of our office, we have our student employment office. We have about 2,100 students who work on campus. And so that office helps students get connected to jobs. And then with our scholarship area, we're helping to find ways that students can not have to borrow as much in student loans and use some of the free financial aid funds that are out there through scholarship programs. And then when it comes time to graduate, if the student doesn't want to continue on to graduate school with us, we'll help them about loan repayment if they have loan debt. So just like I said, start to finish, about you're with us for the next 4 years, or 6 if you want to go to grad school, or longer, and we're going to help you through the process, not only educating you about what financial aid has to offer. Unfortunately, there are times like the COVID-19 situation where unexpected things happen in the family, and so we are a good first point of contact to help you through when unfortunately life throws some weird curveballs into your fiscal plans. So you're stuck with us for a long time.
Now, I think this is a good segue to Ralph. Ralph, obviously, a lot of students will use financial aid to pay for
Mhm.
living on campus.
Yep.
Another really good connection is you employ a number of students to be resident assistants and everything like that in housing. So again, that larger team that you provide in caring for our students that live on campus. Could you give us a global sense of when a student lives on campus, what does that mean to you and your team?
Absolutely. Um, we really want to provide a home for students. And, your student is with us for 9 months out of the year. And they need to start thinking about their independence and learning all of those life skills that will help them once they leave campus to manage a community. So we're really about out of the classroom education, we're about support. We're about communities and building connections and networking. We have a lot of different opportunities on campus that we provide for students. We have 4 different employment programs where we're hiring students really to help us run the office. As you get to know UCCS, you will know that our offices cannot survive without our student employees. They do a great deal amount of work. We have a resident assistant program, or RA, and they're live-in staff on every floor that are there as mentors and helpers and support systems for every resident that lives on their floor. We have front desk assistants that manage our everyday operations, help students with mail, packages, work orders, getting them, the right referrals to different offices, things like that. We have we call them academic support centers, academic learning commons. There's one in each of our villages, and those are staffed with students who are there to assist students with their research. We have printing capabilities. We have the ability for group projects and things like that. So they're there to referrals to our Excel centers and helping students navigate that academic component. And then we started this year, which I think has been really helpful in this environment. We started a student custodian program where our students are helping keep our campus and our resident hall safe by doing all the touch point cleaning and again being there as providing services to our students to make sure they have a great experience. The RAs do an awful lot of programming, community building. There's always opportunities for engagement, both really very small scale, maybe on the floor level, to village-wide programming, to sponsoring different opportunities with all of our offices. We work very closely with the rec center, with student life and leadership, with financial aid, to bring programs into the residence halls so that they are always having an opportunity to have fun, to network, and to learn.
Ralph, I'm pretty certain I can say this with a lot of comfort. We probably have, well, one, we have some of the best residence halls a student will ever find across
Yep.
colleges. The fact that we do suite style residence halls, bathrooms in the suites. In a traditional year, about how many students do we have that actually live on campus?
It's usually close to 1,700. We have 1,719 beds on campus, and we start out the semester in fall about 98 to 99% full. And that's really exciting for it. It really creates a vibrant community, and being able to bring people in to live together and to learn together and to learn about each other. Students will be living from students from all over the US, and we have a great deal of international students. Everyone has a different background, everyone has a different story, and that's the time to learn about those stories. And it's the time to get to know people at different levels and in different ways. As Chris said, all of our accommodations are suite style. The bulk of them are 4-person suites. We have a couple of triple accommodations where there's 6 people in a suite. And that makes for very comfortable living for folks. You know, the first set of residence halls opened up in no, what was it, 96, and then we have built another almost 900 beds in the last 6 years. So those buildings are much newer, but they're really great accommodations. I do have to point out, we do not have air conditioning. Question comes up every fall and every late spring. We do not have air conditioning. So if someone's telling you we do, they've got some wrong information there.
You really don't need it though. I mean, it's pretty
You
cool when
don't.
students are living there. So
Absolutely,
So-
you don't need it.
while we don't have air conditioning, we do have some pretty amazing food. And UCCS operates its own dining services. That really allows us to be super responsive to students, and one, just what would they like to eat, but two, all the dietary, nutritional, and allergy needs of a student, right?
Absolutely. Our dining and hospitality services on campus is, as Chris said, run by UCCS, which is unusual in a lot of colleges. A lot of them have contract services come in, and every student in first year areas receives its room and board, so it's all one price for everything, and you get an all access plan. And what that all access plan will give you is entrance into either of our dining facilities. There are 2 on campus, 1 in each village, and you can go in as many times throughout the day as you want. And that's really nice. So if you have an early morning class, you stop and grab breakfast, but then you've got an hour and a half between your next class, you can go back to the dining hall, grab a coffee, sit and study.
Second breakfast.
And have breakfast again, have second breakfast, but then not have to pay for that $5 coffee. So it's a really great opportunity. The dining halls are continuous dining from 7 in the morning till 8 in the evening, Monday through Friday. And then on Saturday and Sunday, what we have found is most students aren't waking up for breakfast. So we do brunch. We do brunch through dinner. So it's 11 again until 8. And again, it's continuous. You can go back as many times as you want in either of the dining hall. With your all access plan, you also get $50 of flex, which offers some opportunities to utilize the other food services on campus. There are several different coffee shops on campus. There's Clyde's Cafe, there's Cafe 65, where again, if you're in between classes and you can't get back to the resident hall areas, you can grab a sandwich, grab a burger, you know, get one of those $5 coffees. It's great. And you can always add additional money to that, but we start you out with $50 in flex. We also, oh, wait, let me make one other point. You talked about allergens and things like that. Our dining services is really great about working with students to individualize a plan. We also have dietitians through our wellness center that will meet with students and help them come up with plans. If students have issues with dining, gluten, tree nuts, any of those types of allergens, they can actually meet with our executive chef, and they can go through menus and they can figure out what is best for them and their dining needs. So it's a really personalized service that we offer through dining and hospitality and through our wellness center to make sure that our students are eating well and are eating healthy.
So Jevita mentioned that we have 2,000 or so jobs on campus. A lot of them reside in the dining and housing and hospitality services, but you also hire RAs, resident assistants. Yep. You mentioned them earlier. Jevita, I think you were an RA in college, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I do listen. Contrary to what you think, I do listen. Ralph, when usually a sophomore student is the kind of the eligible year of an RA, yep. But what do they get paid? What are the benefits of being a resident assistant?
Resident assistants get full room and board, which is a great savings. We have a variety of room types that all come at different costs. Our most economic is our triple accommodation, and then that goes up from there to a single private, which is a private bedroom and a private bath. And that's what an RA is awarded. And we do that in particular because they are having conversations with roommates, with students that are sensitive in nature often and need that privacy. So that room typically goes for about $7,000 a semester. So an RA is paid a little over $14,000 a year for those 9 months to do those engagement programming, safety and security, mentoring and things like that. So it's a really great opportunity for a student. It's not for the faint of heart. I will, and Jevita can certainly attest to that as well. Jevita's an old res lifer, so her and I have lots of stories. But you deal with a lot of sensitive information, and you create these relationships that are incredibly lasting. I mean, I was an RA, oh God, it was 30 some years ago now. And I still keep in touch with residents that I had. And you develop these lifelong relationships that really help form who you are. And I've learned as much from my residents, even today, than they learned from me. And that's really great. It's a hard job, but it's a great job. It's a great experience. It's a great leadership experience. We do really extensive training with our RAs. They're in training for about 11 days every August before the semester starts, and they get everything from working with the police to all the different service offices, how to build community, how to have intentional conversations, crisis response. All of it's a really great position. I know that folks who have RAs, who have been RAs, also have a greater chance of being hired once they have graduated because of that experience that they get. But right now we employ 49 RAs, which is a fairly large number of folks to take care of all of our residents.
And I think you hit on, that growth that a person is going to experience during their freshman year and throughout their time in college in our smaller environments. So just to kind of throw some stats at folks, so UCCS is a little over 10,000 total students, about 10,400. You heard Ralph earlier say we have about 1,700 of those students that live on campus. Of that number, Ralph, about 1,350, 1,400 are freshman students, give or take. And that always kind of, 1,350. Jevita, jobs on campus are popular and a huge form of just personal aid and support. But then going back to that growth thing, like I loved working on campus when I was in college. I had multiple jobs when I was in college and throughout my entire career. You mentioned earlier about 2,000 or so students work on campus. What's the max hours that a student can work in a week? And what type of pay range are we talking about?
So as far as jobs on campus, the pay ranges will vary. Starting January 1, minimum wage is $12.32. So it can go from that minimum wage to higher. The higher salaries are typically more specialized, things like IT, or working with a professor as an undergraduate or graduate research assistant, things like that. When it comes to working on campus, the maximum that a student can work during the school semester is 25 hours a week. They are called student employees for a reason. We need them to be students first. During spring break, during winter break, during summer, they are allowed to work up to 40 hours a week. So it is one of those things where we do highly recommend, if a student is interested, to start looking for the fall semester, fall of 21. Middle of July is when we start looking for or advertising the jobs available. One of the big pieces that is really important, and it's not just because I was a student employee and I was an RA, it's that connection, and it's also the fact that because we know that you're a student first, this week right now was finals here at UCCS. I had very few student employees in my office this week. Whereas last week, every day, we had student employees in the office. That's not something you necessarily can do when you're working for a private industry. And then also there's the fact that you don't have to move your car. So you also have the ability that in between your classes, you're doing working your work study position or student employment hourly position. One of the other pieces that I think is so important about student employment is that connection. And that's the one piece that, say, for example, that your student is not going to be living on campus. That's a student who might just come to campus, go to class, go home. Well, they don't necessarily have that connection to the university, and it's that connection that puts you in touch with things. I know when my student employee hasn't slept. We all do with our coworkers. Our student employees are no different. So, I'm going to ask, Juan, you look really tired. What's going on? And then he can talk to me and tell me what's going on. I mean, it's that connection. Tomorrow is our fall graduation, and I have to say goodbye to a student employee who I was his first employer and his only start at UCCS. He had never worked before, but he liked hockey, and so he and I connected immediately. And tomorrow's his last day. And a month from now, he's going to start as an officer. What is it called? He's going into the police academy in January here in Colorado Springs. But this is somebody who, like, when he met me 4 years ago, wouldn't even look me in the eye. And now, a month from now, he's going to start serving and protecting me in my city. So, I mean, things like that are just those connections that you can't do. And not every student wants to work, especially their first semester, trying to figure out things. But, that student employment option is always there. But it's a nice way to be connected. And like I said, we want you all to be students first. So that's really important as well.
I think you nailed it a lot of times we're a person's first job. Maybe Ralph is their first employer, or I am with tour guides, or my front desk staff, or just on campus in general. But what I hope you're getting a sense of, audience, is that it's not about just hours worked for us. It really is guiding them through, giving them some more support, checking in on when things are going bad, and checking on when things are going good. It's just that one added level of care that we want to provide. As you heard some stats between the two, we do have a lot of students that live off campus and off campus housing, or still living at home. The area around UCCS has grown tremendously in student rentals. And so that's really what makes it really convenient for students to stay working on campus and work the flexible hours, because we can't schedule them when they're in class. And that's, again, not what we're about. We capitalize the student when it comes to student worker or student assistant. We are getting a few questions, kind of, Jevita, some nuts and bolts financial aid ones. And I'm going to try and get those questions in before my dog barks at the squirrel running in the alley. If she barks, I apologize. Her name is Teague, and she's very protective of me. Jevita, with FAFSA, FAFSA is open, and we do encourage every student and family to submit the FAFSA to us. Whether you think you're going to get money or not, we really think it's invaluable that you get the FAFSA to us, because that just gives you the full scope of everything you have eligible. When students are filling out that FAFSA, how are two separate household incomes considered for financial aid?
When it comes to the FAFSA, only the custodial parent is going to be listed on the FAFSA. So the directions, one of the questions will be parent's current marital status. If the parent says divorced or separated or single, they will only list the parent that they're living with.
When it comes to scholarship applications, which is really what the bulk of your section was kind of pointing to, what are some tips that you have for the students as they complete their scholarship applications? And we do make a joke that parents, we have filled out scholarship applications in the past for their kids. No one on this Zoom webinar will be doing that for their kid. We know that, right, parents? We know that. Jevita, what are some tips that you have for students as they start to approach filling out scholarship applications?
So first and foremost, yes, to reiterate, the scholarship application is completed by the student. Students who are seniors are very busy, but if your student isn't listening in right now, I'm the only Jevita at UCCS. You can have them call me and I will tell them this in person. If you don't apply, you're not going to get anything. Number one. And number two, you have to do the work. The reason is because there is a general essay that is the first part of the application. And that essay is really important because it's going to be the student's opportunity to let us know who they are. There is no limit to the amount of scholarships that a student can receive. I had a student who received their first year 14 different scholarships, and it was enough to pay tuition, housing, study abroad in France. Everybody was happy. She got 6 credits of French. I got a postcard from Paris. So if you don't apply, you're not going to get considered, first and foremost. The second thing is with the essay, it's really important that the student be themselves. Pretty much everyone on this call is on one or more of our scholarship review committees, and we read essays when we're ready to start reviewing them in February and March. The essay that touches the most is the one that is personal. The story about the student who had a stutter and met a professor or teacher and then started Toastmasters or something like that. I mean, you want to make it memorable about yourself, not just a resume, because the resume is a whole separate part of the process. So don't be a number, so to speak, be yourself. Sometimes it's very difficult for students to write about themselves. So that's where parents and other family members can come in. I tell people all the time, write what you think, run it by your parent or your grandparent, and they can remind you of all these different things that you don't think about what's so wonderful about yourself. So that's the big piece. And then again, I can't stress enough, apply for the FAFSA, even if you don't think you need it, because you don't know what else you may qualify for. Unless that's happening, and also it's there as a backup in case anything does happen. In February, we do what we call Fafsa Fest on Fridays in February, because I like to use F's. So it's Fafsa Fest in February. It's terrible that I have a lisp as well. So, but we have these that you'll be able to sign up if you need help with the scholarship application or with the FAFSA. We'll set up one-on-one meetings virtually to help you through that process. So also keep an eye out on, I would start, following our Facebook page, and also admissions is always good about helping advertise some of that stuff as well. But you don't have to wait till February. We're happy to help you schedule an appointment with us. We have financial aid counselors, scholarship counselors that'll help you through those processes. So we're here.
Jevita, I think that exactly is the point, and we're having some very specific financial aid questions put into the Q&A. And so folks, again, because that's a very sensitive thing and that's a very personal thing to you, when you have a specific question about your financial situation in relation to the FAFSA, in relation to financial aid, please contact the financial aid office. We will follow up with all of you with that contact info. They are doing a lot of virtual appointments and having phone calls and things like that. And so follow up with that about your specific situation, because that's much better handled with one of our financial aid counselors than trying to answer it in a Zoom Q&A or a chat. So we probably won't get those answers back to you because, in all honesty, one question leads to 5 more. And so it's better that you have that conversation with a financial aid counselor than this session tonight. So I want to switch gears because Corey put in a question specifically to me. She said, just like Chris's daughter, my daughter's an incoming freshman and a violinist. My daughter's 9, not a freshman yet, although she thinks she's 19. If she wanted to practice violin in her room, Ralph, could she do that?
Absolutely. As long as the students are respectful of quiet hours. We are unplugged, so no electrified instruments, no tweeters or woofers or subwoofers or anything like that. But guitar, violin, you want to check with your roommates, and come up with some ground rules for when that's good and when that might not be so good. And certainly check with floor mates and be respectful, because as you will want them to be respectful for you when you're trying to study or sleep, you want to be respectful for them as well. So violin is not an issue. Tuba might be, but a violin would be fine.
You're just a tubaist, and
I
tubas
am.
are okay. But if the school, if the
In the right
roommates say
place.
tubas are cool, tubas are cool.
Right place, right time. A tuba is great.
In my old neighborhood, the tuba, the gentleman who played the tuba would walk up and down the street. So we have our spine, maybe outside tubaing would be,
Absolutely.
Ralph, you mentioned earlier about the $50 flex money. Is that in a semester or in a year?
That's for every semester, and it does not roll over if not used. So I always encourage our students, as they're nearing the end of the semester, if they have any flex dollars left, go and buy bottled water, snacks, power bars, things that won't spoil. Use that money up. You paid for it. So you need to utilize it. And I would say every year, probably $5,000 to $6,000 worth of flex dollars is just forfeited because it didn't get used by the student. So always use that up first. If you do decide to purchase additional monies to utilize in our food service or bookstore area called Clyde's Cash, our systems are smart enough to know to use your flex dollars first, because monies that is purchased for Clyde's Cash does roll over from semester to semester as long as you're enrolled. So that's important. So you can do that however it fits for your student's lifestyle. It's really nice to have everything on your ID card. To be able to go to the bookstore, go grab a coffee and go get your meal and get into your building or into your employment area. It's all on one card. And that's really helpful. We're also, it's kind of exciting. I don't really quite understand all the technology, but all of it is going touchless as well. And we'll see how that goes. I'm hopeful that the transition goes really well, but you always have issues with that kind of. What's that?
I love the optimism.
Yeah, well, you always have issues with new technology, and this is, although it's not new technology, it's new technology to us, and it's a new company we're working with, and they're trying to go completely touchless by fall. I know that when COVID hit in spring, the campus also went cashless. So everything was done on either your debit card or through Clyde's Cash and that type of thing, and that was all obvious on money transactions and trying to slow the spread. So I could see us continuing with a cashless operations in our different retail areas.
Just kind of looking through the chat here and just seeing, we got very active questions and we really appreciate it. I mean, that is the whole point, is to engage with you and to answer questions. Ralph, how are roommates selected?
Couple of different ways. A student, if they know someone that they want to room with, they can request each other. There are some generic questions that we go through, sleeping hours, smoking, non-smoking, all of that type of thing, and students are matched up by that. I will be honest, we don't do a lot with putting majors together. That I have found in my experience, that oftentimes doesn't work because you're in class with them, then you go live with them, then you go eat with them. Again, it's about that diversity and that breadth of experience with people. Not that they don't work out, and not that, you know, two folks in the same major can't be lifelong friends and lifelong roommates. But you know, it's often good to really kind of stretch yourself. You have the ability, oftentimes what'll happen is through orientations as you're meeting people too. You can always add someone in, and we'll do our best to accommodate that. We don't actually start placements until March. And so the first round of placements is typically done by mid-March, mid to late March, and then we send out your roommate letter and your assignment letter. So by beginning of April, you know who you're living with for the most part, and you know where you're living, which is really kind of fun to be able to start creating those relationships. I will give one piece of advice, and this is completely unsolicited by Chris. Please don't have your students get to know each other over Facebook or TikTok or in things. You know what? Give them a call. You know, a lot of younger folks hate to use the phone these days unless it's to text. Actually have a phone call, have a conversation with the person, meet for coffee, meet for a soda, go for a walk. That's a really great way to get to know somebody rather than getting to know someone through social media. Where, you know, sometimes things on social media you may not be all that proud of 2 or 3 years later. But you post something and you think it's funny at the time, and maybe it won't be so funny to another person, but that's not who you really are. And that's really important to again stretch yourself, build that relationship with your new roommates. That's really important. Talk about what each other is bringing. You know, you don't need 4 microwaves in one suite. Share those expenses. You may want to everyone bring your own small refrigerator, but again, even that, if you're getting a larger one, that can be shared too. Talk about what that all means to live together, and your RAs work with you to develop kind of a contract for living. What is shareable, what is not? I have seen the best of friends move in together, and by the 3rd week, they're at each other's throats because one ate the other's Oreos and didn't ask, but they never talked about sharing food. And that led to room changes and huge problems. So make sure you're talking about what is shareable, what you can do, what you can't do.
Our Oreos really
A couple of check off things. I want to just check off a couple things. So a question was asked about the meal plan. That's just included in the housing cost. That's not an extra expense that students have to pay. When students live on campus, the laundry facilities are also not, they're free of charge. You're already paying for those services. So we're not going to wash your laundry for you. I shrink everything. You don't want to do that. My wife complains all the time about my shrinking stuff, but that's not a charge service. Those machines are free. And then parking is also included when you live on campus. So you're not paying extra for parking. There've been a couple questions about military benefits. So we have an outstanding Veterans and Military Affairs Service and office on campus. So if any of you are using GI Bill, VA benefits, anything like that, please contact our Veterans and Military Affairs folks. They're at military@uccs.edu. Start with them. Their process then flows into Jevita's process with financial aid. But begin that with the Veterans and Military Affairs Office, again, military@uccs.edu. Here's a really good question that Vanessa pushed to us. Is there any type of financial help, Jevita, for someone that because when you apply to housing, it's a $100 fee, it's a $200 deposit, and a $300 down payment, so kind of $600 up front. Can students get assistance with that in the beginning? I mean, you can both answer this one together if you would like.
Yeah. So there is a reduction of those fees if a student qualifies for the federal Pell Grant. So the first step would be to complete the 2021-2022 FAFSA, which again opened on October 1st. Listing UCCS, we receive it electronically about 3 to 5 days after it's filed. And then if the student is interested in getting that housing fee reduction, and on the student aid report that the student receives from the filing of the FAFSA, it will tell the student if they qualify for the federal Pell Grant. Then all the student needs to do is email our office. Our email is FINAIDSE, and we're linked to everything on admissions and our own website. But the student would just email us that they are applying for housing, and then our office emails the housing area and lets them know that the student would qualify for the reduced fee waiver.
And that works it works the other way as well. If you contact us and say, anything I can do to reduce this, we will contact financial aid directly, get that, and then adjust your account. The $100 is one of the fees that is waivable, as well as the $300, what we call a prepayment. The $200 security deposit must be paid for by every student and is not covered by any financial aid. The $100 application fee is non-refundable, but the deposit and the prepayment are refundable up until the end of May. So you want to make sure that once you've applied and paid those fees, that if you're going to cancel with us and that happens and life changes and you decide to go somewhere else, that's okay. Go somewhere else. We just want you to go. That's important. But you can get that money back. After May 31st, there are no refunds at all because we need to do our planning for that next academic year. That prepayment of $300 is applied to your bill after you move in August and before what we call census date, which is kind of the lockdown date for all your classes. So, so that will be applied directly to your bill. And if you've already paid your bill and you've got that sitting, that would then come back to as a refund to you.
Ralph, you talked about that students can select their own roommates and that they can also kind of play the lottery and get put with some fun people. That was my experience.
Yep.
I will never forget my freshman roommate. He had an impact on me, and we don't need to get into that counseling session right now. Ralph, we usually have enough interest for an all-female floor. We never have enough interest in the history of man for interest in an all-male floor, like ever. For some reason, guys just don't want to live with a bunch of other dudes. But could men and women live together in the same room?
Yes. As long as the student is opting into it. It's called our gender inclusive housing. We only offer that where a suite has all private bedrooms. So we have several different accommodations where there are three-person suites, all with a private bedroom, or four-person suites, all with a private bedroom. We will not place folks who opt into gender inclusive housing in a double or a triple. We always make sure everyone has a private bath or a private bedroom. There is a shared bathroom, but we've actually had really great success. We started this, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. We started this program, and we actually started in upper class housing and then moved it into first year housing as well. And it's a great opportunity for folks for friends. I mean, we've had siblings that wanted to share a suite, and it works out really well.
Yeah. There's been some questions about deadlines, and I think this is a good chance just to throw out those deadlines. We have scheduled this for about an hour, but we will obviously stay on for a little bit longer to answer some of your questions, but not too late because Ralph's an early to bed person. Because he's already in his bedroom, as you can tell. Like, he's probably wearing his pajamas underneath that sweater, folks.
I am.
So we've opened up the scholarship application. Opened up FAFSA's available, housing applications open. Javita, the first really big scholarship kind of first deadline is February 1st for a lot of the bigger dollar amount ones. March 1st is the priority date to submit the FAFSA, and really kind of the final deadline for I would say 99% of the scholarships. We got a couple that for transfer students specifically that kind of hang out for a little bit. Ralph, there really is no deadline for housing. You laid out that you start doing placement in March, but really a student could apply for housing in June or July if circumstances called for that. There's no
Absolutely.
deadline for you really up until you fill, but even then, you'll kind of keep a little wait list if necessary to work with students really up until we can't work with them anymore, which is kind of never. I mean, you'll take a student mid-semester if you can, right?
Absolutely. We have no deadlines.
Housing is
We do have,
housing is paid per semester.
we've got a March 15th priority date. And that's when we start our first round of placements. Obviously, with the amount of different room types that we have, we don't have unlimited inventory in every type. So some of our rooms, like are the single privates, that's that private bedroom and a bath all by yourself. We've only got really about 30 of those in our inventory, so they can go pretty quickly. So the sooner you get your application in, the better the chance you get your first, second, or third option. So as you're filling out the application, make sure you're really thinking that through, both financially and what works with your lifestyle. And what is it that you need, and rank those accordingly, because we do go by that ranking and by date. To make it fair for everyone, everything is done by completed application date. So you will get an email saying your application is complete, and that's what we go by. Just because you've gone in and started the application but finished it 2 months later, it doesn't go back to that first date. It goes by the completed application date.
There have been a couple questions in here, and I will apologize in advance. The fearsome Amazon delivery driver is threatening my home's life, and so my dog is very concerned about this. He's basically here every day. He's freaking family at this point. COVID. So there's this thing going on in society. I'm not sure if you heard about it. It's not Tom Brady in Tampa Bay, by the way. We don't really know quite yet what the fall semester at UCCS will look like. We are optimistic that it will be hopefully in person. But this last semester and this current year is pretty remote and online. Ralph, you have had a number of students still living on campus. What has that been like as far as planning, and what are the precautions and the safety measures that your team has put in place to keep students protected and safe?
Great question, Chris. Things that we've done this year is we brought in El Paso County Health, and they toured the facility. They gave us lots of great recommendations and guidance. For instance, in our double accommodations, we only put one person in there. But if someone chose to have a roommate, El Paso County Health said you could place them together because that would be like a family unit. So we never had more than 4 people to a bathroom facility within a private suite. We were able to double up on the triples, but again, it was only 2 people in the triple. And for those folks that were in the triple or the double, they were charged that rate. They weren't charged an upcharge because they were alone or they went from a triple to a double, if that makes sense. So that's how we did placement this year. We were about at 70% for most of fall. So we had a little over 1,200 and some folks living on campus. And that was great to still have that community. It was difficult. It was a struggle, as it's a struggle really for all of us. You know, we're a culture of bringing people together, and we weren't able to bring people together like we would normally do, but there were lots of opportunities for engagement, both small scale programming on floors, as well as a lot of virtual opportunities, as well as when there were the larger scale events on campus that we were able to take folks to through our RA staff. Certainly we increased, tripled, quadrupled all of our touch point cleaning, and everything that we could do to make safe environments. Masks were required outside of suites. You know, even in lounges, the health department told us that they considered the lounge their living room. So we didn't have to remove furniture or really do reductions. We did ask people to maintain social distancing, but you know, you could still get, you know, several folks in a lounge to watch a TV movie night, those types of things. You know, certainly we had the same kinds of things in dining. We had reduced seating capacity. We were only allowed 4 people per table, and tables were spread out at a 6-foot distance apart. They went from serving on, you know, china and regular cutlery and glasses to everything became disposable because it was easier to handle. They did a lot more to go. And students could come in, go through the line, and again, take as much as they wanted back to their rooms. So that a lot of that went on as well. Outdoor activities were certainly a lot easier because you can get more people with the airflow and everything. You know, we still had our mask requirement outside. You know, and it's a struggle, but I think we were really successful. We had quarantine rooms put aside for someone who might have had contact or tested positive. We've had very few positives in housing. We've had no outbreaks. We didn't have to quarantine any floors or buildings like many colleges did. So that was really great. And it's interesting. The contact tracing that's been done for our students who did have those exposures or were positive almost exclusively came from the community. They were not contracting it while being in housing or on campus. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jevita, help me with this. I think we only had 3 classrooms overall, all fall semester, that there was some concern over that contagion, and that is really minimal compared to what other schools went through. So I think that we were really proactive, and we did a really good job of keeping our folks safe. And of course, our students, they're the ones who really kept us safe as well. And when we started this student custodian program, I was really amazed because I was the one doing all the interviewing. I was running the program for our department. The students were wanting this job, which cleaning is not a glamorous job. We paid well, but it's not a glamorous job. They wanted to do that because they wanted to do their part to keep the community safe. And that's all they had to say to me, and I hired them. Because that is the kind of motivation that our students had to work with us and understand that this is a difficult environment and everyone was doing the best they can.
Well, we're certainly going to operate as if, you know, there is no normal anymore. I think we can all do a head nod on that one. But we do have some normal practices that we will follow. Jevita, how soon will students be notified of their award letters, of scholarships, of kind of financial aid, of FAFSA results, things like that?
From, as mentioned, the FAFSA opened in October. A student may be selected for what's called federal verification, and if so, we've sent students emails to let them know the email that they listed on the FAFSA to complete those documents. We'll start sending out notifications from the FAFSA eligibility starting the middle of February. And then as far as scholarships, Chris had mentioned the first deadline is February 1st. Those are merit scholarships. So those notifications go out typically the first week of April. And then for the March 1 scholarships that are more of the need-based financial aid scholarships and others through the colleges, those notifications are also probably more middle of April, beginning of May. So, you know, my recommendation is please don't wait till the deadlines. Do it as early as possible. don't need to worry about it. And then you'll get those notifications as early as possible. So again, early, mid-February for FAFSA information. So any kind of federal, state, financial aid eligibility. And then the scholarships will be in April. And, again, I cannot stress enough, please contact if you have any questions. We can set up half-hour times where we can sit with parents and students and help you through the process. So don't feel like you have to, that you're alone as you're going through this process at all. Okay. I saw Chris's foot. There's Chris again. He's muted.
You're muted, Chris.
You would think after a year of pandemic online Zoom freaking meetings, I could unmute myself. However, I was backed up because my computer just died and I had my iPad on because I was following Q&A. So we are prepared. We are professionals. With our few minutes remaining, Ralph, you know that we will obviously give Jevita the last word because she requires it of us. Ralph, last thoughts. I do have some housekeeping things that I want to finish with as well, but we are going to give Jevita the last word. Ralph, last thoughts, comments, tips, advice for the students and parents that are still with us tonight, which is a super impressive number, and we cannot thank you enough for taking this time on a Thursday night with us.
Sending your child off to school is scary. We get that. We understand that. And oftentimes you may want to be involved more than maybe you should be. And I say that with a laugh, but at the same time, it's helpful for the student to learn that independence. And as much as you might want to sit down and do their housing application or fill out their FAFSA for them, have them sit with you while you're doing it. Don't take that on for them. You're answering these questions and they're the ones who really need to be involved and present in this planning for college. Don't have them come home the first weekend. Let them stay on campus. That's so important. Certainly we encourage families to visit, and we love to have families come visit us and visit your student while they're here. But they're really craving and wanting that independence. And it's hard. We get that. I understand that. But help them become independent. If they're having an issue, support them. Don't do it for them. I mean, I'm serious with that because I get calls every fall, from an angry parent because their student's light bulb hasn't been changed because it burnt out. But I don't know about it because the work order's never been done. They've never done what they needed to do to let us know. This really is a partnership. And we need the student to participate with our office and with our support systems and our processes to make this work out well. I always welcome a conversation with the parent. But I really need to have the student involved. I don't want to have the conversation with the parent where they want me to move their child. Well, I'm not going to do that until I have the conversation with the student, because that's really whose life we're affecting. So be involved, be supportive, absolutely. And again, I will take your phone call anytime, but I need the student to be involved in all of those different things that can go on. It's hard to let them go, but let them go. It's their time, and we'll be there with the safety nets and the support. They need to reach out to us as much as we need to reach out to them. Again, it really is a partnership, and you're not just sending them into the abyss. We're there for them, and that's really important to us, and that's why we do this, and that's why we're so committed. Many folks in our office and on campus have been doing this for a very long time. I've been in housing for over 20 some years, and I love it. I could make a whole lot more money doing other things, I'll be honest with you, but I love what I do, and I love my job, and I love working with with students, and I love working with families as well. My only other piece of advice is, if you are going to call me, make sure your child has filled out their FERPA. That's really important, because that's one of the first things I have to look at, because I am bound by that federal law to not have those conversations about anything in particular. I can talk in general about policies and rules and how things work, but if that FERPA is not on file, I can't talk to you about a whole lot that's going on specifically with your child. So with that being said, again, send them, let them have fun. It's a great experience. And if you ever have questions, feel free to reach out to me. And thank you for your time tonight, and happy holidays.
We'll be following just for attending this with a lot of links and email addresses and whatnot. As I said, we will get over. So my closing remarks are just some housekeeping things. One, I hope you are getting a sense number of services, support, and the fact that we really do care about the well-being of your student. And there are so many departments and offices and people on campus that are here to help with your students. Earlier this week, I met with our Career Center, who's got an amazing survey assessment where they can really help your students understand what major they might be interested in, what jobs that might lead to. It's called the Top 7. If you go to uccs.edu/directors den, you will see that little interview that we did with the Career Center. So I'd encourage you all to check that out. For students that still haven't got admitted yet, please reach out to us, do an application status check, and see where things are going. We are processing and reviewing applications as fast as we possibly can. And so get to us if you haven't heard back yet. We'll check into that and see how things are going. UCCS does not have a binding commitment process. So we really leave it open to you to let us know when you want to attend. So if you claim your UCCS account, that's not committing to UCCS. If you put a housing application in, that's not committing to UCCS. If you do Jevita's financial aid stuff, that's still not committing to UCCS. Even if you do an orientation reservation, which is pretty much the closest thing we have to you saying to us, I'm coming to UCCS, that's still not binding. But orientation is something that we will invite all students that are admitted in the February, March timeframe. And that's to really let us know that you're coming to UCCS. But again, it's not a binding commitment. It's just us knowing how to keep helping you as you work your way through the process. We've talked about dates. We've talked about deadlines. Really the next big deadline's coming up February 1st, March 1st. February 1st, that first priority date for scholarships, priority date for financial aid and FAFSA on March 1st, and then really kind of the final deadline for scholarships is approaching. As you heard Ralph say, there is no deadline for housing. It's just a first come, first serve operation. But know that we're gonna keep contacting you, letting you know about opportunities, more things like this. In fact, in January, our next Director's Den is talking with some recent alumni, some young alums about their time at UCCS and how it prepared them for their jobs. You'll hear from Levine, who's currently in med school. You'll hear from Shannon, who's a systems engineer at the Aerospace Corporation, maybe a couple others if we can track them down. We're gonna keep bringing you people and keep showing you how we really back up what we talk about in brochures and in websites. And we're gonna keep putting people in front of you. So I cannot thank you enough. This has been a tremendous outpouring of questions, great questions. And I really hope that you have felt this is very much worth your time. And so, Jevita, you may wrap it up for us this evening.
Cool. Well, first and foremost, thank you for coming tonight. The one thing that I want to stress, I have also been in higher ed, full in financial aid for over 20 years. And one of the biggest things that I like to stress to students and parents is that, you know, we want you to be here for 4 years. So we want you to do your research, ask questions. As you're going through the admission process, the financial aid process, and you're visiting colleges, either online or in person, make sure you ask a lot of questions. And, you know, if somebody can't answer a question and doesn't have a way to give you another resource, not a good sign. So make sure that you ask questions. You know, this is a 4-year commitment. The last thing that any of us ever want to see is a student start at our university and then a week later or a semester later they hate it and they want to transfer. That's not a successful college education experience. So don't think that you are ever asking too many questions. Like Ralph said, please try to include your students when you're asking these questions, because there is a handoff that's going to have to happen in August. So just make sure that you know that we're here for you. We will answer any questions you have. Don't, you know, I get parents a lot of times who will say, I'm sorry to bug you, or I'm sorry, I hope this isn't a stupid question. There is no stupid question and there is no bugging. Chris and Ralph would probably reiterate that I have to keep busy. Otherwise, I cause trouble. So it is best to keep me and the rest of my office busy. Okay. So you are never a bother to us. Make sure that you ask all the questions, because we want you and your student to make a 4-year commitment to our university, and we want everybody to be happy with that choice. So as you're going through this investigative time, know that you have a lot of people that will help you through the process, educate your student, both in and out of the classroom. So that's our overall job and commitment. And you know, we do it because like what's going to happen tomorrow, we're going to have over, you know, 1,000 students who are going to graduate this December, and there's nothing better than watching them cross the stage. So I thank you for coming.
Ralph, Jevita, thank you so much. You know I love you. Cheers. We've known each other for probably longer than we'd like to talk about. So it's been great. I really appreciate everyone sending in the questions. Thank you so much. We will follow up with contact information about these different services, reminders, things like that. But I will speak for Ralph and Jevita. Happy holidays to you, your family. We look forward to seeing you. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your